Well, as your visiting preacher, it's been 2 years since I've been here. You all remember me, right? My name's Mark. Michigan Christian Youth Camp. There's probably not a lot that you don't know about it, but I'm going to repeat some of it. Michigan Christian Youth Camp is a great mission, of course, as already talked about by Rick. I've been on the board since 2010. I've been the board president since 2012, which is a long time. 14 years is, it makes it kind of tough sometimes. They get tired of me out there. Our current board members, there are 5 from the Royal Congregation out of 15 board members. So there's a great interest in this mission, and we have former board members, I know 2 or 3, probably 4 that are former board members. So it's been an important mission the Michigan Christian Youth Camp has been for Royal Oak for a number of years. Do I have a clicker up here? I think. Oh, there we go. You're going to click for me? I'm going to click myself. All right, go one back. I did it. Just want to say the location of this is about at 1 hour north. You go up I-75 to M24, you turn right on Imlay City Road, you go about halfway toward from Imlay City to Lapeer, halfway between that. Next chart, please. Most of you know the history of MCYC. It was started in 1954. This was before I was born. It was chartered at that time. Yeah, I know. The property in Attica was purchased in 1956, and the first time we had campers there was in 1958. So they used to camp. They picked a local campground, and they'd camp there. And it was started by a number of churches of Christ. I don't remember how many. I know the history. I got the history book at home. Somebody did a thesis on it, and it talks about how it was established. And these churches come together to fill the need to teach children. And it's been a great mission ever since. It's 154 acres, I think. I always get confused at how many acres because we had many more before. We sold some off. It has 21 structures. 6 of them are dormitories. It have 3 houses, some sheds, a couple of barns, a tack room, and miscellaneous buildings all over the campus. And a lot of them are very old. This is what the campus looks like. This is the main campus. Again, it's on a lot of acreage. This is a primary activity area. You can barely see, but there are 6 dorms in there. There's also the, to your right would be the lodge, and to the right of that would be where the waterfront is. It's a beautiful campus. A typical winter at MCYC this past winter, we had a big tree fall on a little roof on dorm 4, and it was kind of self-imposed. We were trying to save money by taking down a tree, and it was a big tree. And the plan was to fell that tree not on the building, but of course things happen, and that's what happens sometimes. And then on dorm 6 with the metal roof, which is a 50-year roof, it's not been there since I think 2019, so it's not quite 50 years old. Actually very short. But all the screws in the top were leaking, and it caused damage to dorm 6 conference room. All the drywall's got to be replaced, insulation, and also the secondary staff residence has a roof leak. And the primary staff has a septic, tank issue. So there's about, 30 or 40,000 hours worth of repairs. And this is kind of typical for the campus because the campus is so old. Again, some of these houses, one of them, the primary staff residence built in the 70s. The secondary staff residence built in 1860, I think. So again, a lot of maintenance for those buildings. But what do we do there? What do you do at MCYC? We teach Jesus. Absolute foremost, first thing on the agenda, the reason it was established, the reason that we're there, the reason I participate, the reason you have 5 board members here from this church participating in it, because there's teaching going on about Jesus. During the summer, we will have about 400 to 450 kids. Cameron can probably give me a better number now. And over the year, throughout the year, and all of these activities, the winter camp, summer camp, the women's programs, the man's programs, leadership conferences, those kinds of things, we generally have about 2,000 people cross our campus. And the campus, again, is used to teach about Jesus. It's also available for weddings. It's a great venue for a wedding, depending on what your liking is. So we do a lot of different things. We've had a couple picnics from the Royal Oak Church out there as well. I want to talk a little bit about Dorm 2. Say, what do we do? We've been involved with the camp for a long time, but back in 2013, we adopted this dorm. This dorm was almost ready. They were hoping a tree would fall on it. And when I approached the elders at that time, I said, we'd like to adopt a dorm, or I would encourage us to adopt a dorm. They said, which one's in the worst shape? I said, dorm 2. They said, we'll adopt that one. And that's what Royal Oak did. And that was in 2013. We began work on it in 2014. And we funded and did all the labor to do the renovation over a 5-year period. We completely remodeled it. We redesigned it a little bit, replaced the roof, the windows, the walls, the ceilings, the electrical, the plumbing, insulation, the furnace, the air, the bath tile, the floor tile over that period of 5 years. And many, many people from this congregation participated in the work, and all of you participated in the funding of these programs. And we rebuilt that, and it's one of the finest dorms there right now and the most up to date. And that's thanks to you and your effort and your involvement with that. We have contributed. It shows special contributions over a period of time. Again, the furnace and the air was done in the window coverings were done in 23. The waterfront storage garage, a number of us went up there to build that in 2024 and 2025. All of the money we collected here went to the capital campaign, which I'll talk about in a minute. We also provided them a pickup truck. That's 2 pickup trucks that we provided over the last few years. They go through trucks pretty fast. We don't buy them new ones because you can't buy new ones and then have 16, 18-year-olds driving them. Sometimes things happen, right? So we buy gently used ones and take donations of those as well. In 2023, we had someone from the church personally donate the money for the bunk beds, and that was several $1,000s. It's quite an expense to put beds in those rooms. 2 years ago, when I talked up here as your guest speaker, we talked about the capital campaign. One of our goals for many years, there's been a need for a year-round activity center. We have a lodge right now. The lodge is the kitchen. The lodge is also the eating area. The lodge is right now the backup room for whenever it rains, whenever there's something going on that we can't go outside. We have to be in that room, in the kitchen, in the that space. So the need for another room to do that has been around for many, many, many years. We started the capital campaign a number of years ago. You probably heard about it many times, and it's a sluggish thing to do. We need $1.7 million to build that building and not owe any money on it. We have collected, as of the last time I talked 2 years ago, $450,000 was set aside for that, specifically collected for that purpose. Since that time, we've accumulated $788,000 toward that effort. So this is the thing. If we can get to $1 million, we can begin actually spending some of that money to begin this process of building this building. So what I'm asking you to do is help us to get from $788 to $1 million. Okay, think about that for a while. All the money that's collected next week of the special donation would go toward that purpose. All right? And again, I think last time I talked about this is the rendering. We have an architect who has already invested, a member of the church invested all of his resources, personally, his business, to do these renderings and to do the architectural package for this. I can tell you about how much I think it costs, but it's a significant amount of money. This is the rendering that we've been working with. This is what it would look like. It would be a multi-purpose room, a gymnasium, activity center, and it could be used for other occasions. This is where it would sit on the campus, right adjacent to the existing lodge. And to the right of the lodge, again, it would be where the waterfront is. So if you have any questions about what we're going to do with that money that we collect next week, ask me later, or you could ask Ron, or you could ask Rick, or you could ask Arlena or Jeff, all members of the board, of course. They can help straighten you out on anything you need to know about that. But we need some people that, 3-digit, 4-digit, 5-digit donations. And it's not out of the realm of possibilities. In December 2026, almost 20 years ago, I went to a funeral for a former member of this congregation. Some of you were there at that funeral. It was a little bit up north. He was 45 years old. And he had suffered a heart attack on a basketball court. And a short time later, he died, 45 years old. And he seemed to be a very healthy man. He was very energetic, always involved, and very busy. His name was David Moore. Actually, last week, somebody brought up his name. Do you remember, when did David die? And I actually knew. When I taught high school Bible classes back in the 70s here at church, he was a student in that class. In later years, he was part of our church group of 12 men. We would play basketball during the winter. We usually played for, 20 weeks from, September through the spring. We would rent a local school here in Royal Oak, and we would throw elbows at each other for about 3 hours every Monday night. And he played at that group, and so he was part of our group then. So I probably knew him about 30 years when he died. And during the memorial service, a number of people got up to talk. They had the open mic, which I think is a very dangerous thing. But they had people came up and they told different stories. They told different events or conversations they had with him or interactions, and they were all pretty excited about talking about him. But one of the speakers came up and he said, "He was my best friend." I thought, well, how cool. And another speaker come up and said, "He was my best friend." And another speaker came up and said, "He was my best friend." I'm thinking, how many best friends can you have? I mean, really. But it caught my attention. Dave was their best friend, for whatever the reasons were. He had an impact on their lives. David had an impact on their lives. And he had a special relationship with each of those people who said those words. Some of the people talked about him bringing over fresh fish. He'd go fishing. He was an avid fisherman. He'd bring up fish over and present the dinner. Let's have dinner. Here, I brought the fish. Or he'd go over and take pastries, or sometimes he'd just show up and visit. He had a retail job at Oakland Mall up here in later years. He lived up north, so he would come down here. Sometimes he'd stay with the Winskys, I think. Sometimes he stayed at our house for a couple nights, so he wouldn't have to come back and forth up north. And he was a good friend to us as well. And one of these visits, he brought me a ceramic fish that he had made. And he gave it to me as a gift, and it hangs on the wall in my library as a reminder of the friendship that I had with him. But I wonder, how many best friends can a person have? And can everybody be your best friend? We look in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden, God had a special, ideal relationship with Adam and Eve. God walked with them. Sinless people and a perfect God. What a great relationship. But it changed, didn't it? Things are significantly different now. Moses and Abraham were called in the Bible friends of God. David was called a man after God's own heart. Job and Noah also had intimate friendships with God. We read in the Bible that God cares deeply about these relationships. In Acts 17, verse 26, it says, "From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us." And it goes on to say, "For in him we live and move and have our being." And as some of your own poets say, we are his children. Knowing and loving God and being loved by God is our greatest privilege. But how do you develop a friendship with God? And some of it sounds so easy, but in application, sometimes it's very difficult. First of all, you never grow a close relationship with God by just showing up for church. That's only the beginning, the very, very beginning. 1 Thessalonians says in 5:17 that we should pray without ceasing. And what is a prayer? A prayer is a conversation without ceasing with God. Does that even sound possible, to have a conversation all day long with God? How do you do that? How does that happen? Is it a literal meaning or is it figurative? I take it as a literal meaning, a literal translation. To have an open-ended conversation all day long, practicing being in the presence of God or feeling his presence in our lives is a skill and a habit. It's something we develop through reading God's word and also having that constant conversation with him. It's important to establish a habit, a daily conversation with God, but it's got to be more than an appointment on a clock. It's got to be more than that. And it can't be just at bedtime. It's got to be a continuous interaction with him. A strong relationship is not built on just a one-time bedtime ritual. He wants to be included in every aspect of our lives. He wants us to talk to him just commonly, regularly, all day long. He wants to know what we're doing, what we're thinking, how we're feeling. Now, if you're talking to God all day long, you got to be a little careful, because some people might think you're a little nutty or something, right? But God needs to be invited to be part of our lives. He's not going to impose on us. He wants you to call on him. He wants you to be part of his life, and he wants to be part of your life. It's encouraging to know that God's closest friends that we read about a minute ago out of the Bible, they had doubts, they had fears, they had anxieties. But instead of masking those things in their life, they talked to God boldly about them. In Genesis 18, it's kind of fun. God allowed Abraham to question and challenge him. And Abraham negotiated with God over what it would take to spare the city of Sodom. God allowed him to negotiate, right? So, well, that's interesting. Job vented his bitterness to God when he lost his family, his children, his house, his fortune. He was angry, he was bitter. But God defended him for being honest with him when Job talked to God about it. In Exodus 33, God had said to Moses, said, I'm not going to go with you one step farther in the desert, because the Israelites weren't doing right. They weren't doing right by God. And God said to Moses in verse 3, you go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you, because you are stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. That's God talking in his frankness. And what did Moses say back? In verse 13, he said, with equal candor and maybe a little sarcasm, I'll infer a little sarcasm. Moses says, if your presence does not go with us, don't send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? So Moses was kind of right back at him. And God expressed his disappointment with the Israelites. And Moses said, they're your people. They're your problem, so to speak. How did God handle that frankness, that comeback from Moses? He said, where did it say? I will do everything you ask, because I am pleased with you and I know you by name. A frank conversation between God and Moses. Can God handle a frank conversation from us? Can he handle our ranting, our raving, our anger, our rage, our frustrations? Can he handle it? Yeah, he can handle it. He wants it. He expects it. He wants you to vent to him. He wants you to tell you what you're thinking. He wants to be part of your life. The good parts, the bad parts. He wants to be part of all of your life. He can handle it. He wants a relationship that is based on authenticity. Not the simple prayer or conversation that a child would have before bedtime, but it's me and you, God, talking. And this is what's on my heart. This is what's on my mind. It's also important that we choose to obey him in faith. Part of that deal, part of that relationship is with obedience, which was read earlier. In John 15, Jesus made it clear that obedience is part of intimacy with God, and he said, you are my friends if you do what I command. He has expectations of his friends. Every time we trust God's wisdom and do whatever he says, even when we don't understand it, it deepens our relationship with God. It makes us go, we trust it. We did it. Don't understand it. He told me to do it. I read about it, heard about it. I felt the need to do whatever it was. Every time we trust his wisdom, our relationship with him deepens. Sometimes people think Christians obey out of obligation or guilt or fear. I don't know too many Christians like that. Most of us, the opposite is true. Jesus said in John 15, verse 9, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love. Just as I, Jesus, have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love, I have told you this, that my joy may be in you, my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. Our obedience is demanded for our goodwill, for our, if we remain in his love, it's for our joy to be complete. Another part of becoming closer to God is that we have to want the friendship with him. We have to want that relationship. Paul wrote in Philippians 3, verse 10, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow to attain the resurrection from the dead. That's how much Paul wanted it. You have to want that relationship. But the bottom line is, we are as close to God as we want to be. God's there. He's available. He's ready. He's willing. He wants us to be part of him and him to be part of us, but we have to want it too. We're as close as we want to be. An intimate relationship with God is a choice. And a passive relationship with God is not a relationship at all. Or a passing friend, there's no relationship there. An acquaintance, no relationship there. Like any friendship, we have to work at developing the relationship. It won't happen by accident. It takes desire, it takes time, it takes effort. We need to be honest and share our feelings, and we need to seek to know him. One of our songs that Alex led today, if you feel him pulling you closer, don't resist it. He's trying to pull you closer. He wants you to be closer. And one more thing. We need to care about what God cares about. It's not about us. It's about him. Back in the 90s, the olden days, right? Don and I went on a vacation to England and Scotland and Belgium and France. And while we were there, we did what a lot of tourists do. What do? Let's go check out the castles, right? Because there's so many magnificent castles there. So we went to a place called Hampton Court Palace. Hampton Court Palace. Anybody know it? It's about 12 miles outside of London, downtown London. King Henry VIII, the eighth was a resident there. And they told a story about having an audience with the king. And if you wanted an audience with the king, you try to set up an appointment, right? How do you do that? Well, I don't know how you do that. But it wouldn't be us. The common folk would not have a relationship with the king at all where they could go up, we go knock on the door. Hey, I want to see the king. No, you had to be somebody already in your own right. You had to have some kind of status or some kind of business with the king before he see you. But first, they take you into this room. And the room was probably twice as long as this building and this room, and probably twice as tall. It was just a magnificent building, like the gymnasium we're trying to build, right? But it was huge, and on the wall were all these armaments. Everything you could think of that would be fought with, battle-worthy, that were hanging on the wall. And the reason that you walked into that room was to see the power of the king, to be muted by that, to be in awe of that, to be afraid of that. I'm going to see the king, and he can kill me if he wants. He has all this power over me. It was meant to intimidate. And in that room, there were no chairs. There was no restroom. There was no water fountain. It was just one big empty room, except for what was on the wall. And you could be there for hours waiting for the appointment. And he could still say no. So you stood there, waiting. Another act of intimidation. But if someone came to the room, there was a door there. If someone came and said, come on in, and you go to the next room, same size room, no king, but on the wall was a display of the wealth, the tapestries and the artwork, and just to show how wealthy he was, how wealthy the king was. Same thing, no bathroom, no chair, a minimal even expectation that you're going to see the king. And all this was to make you feel small. And then ultimately, the third room was the throne room. And if you were able to get in that, his attendants would let you in, and the soldiers would be there. The intimidation continued, right? What if you're best friends with the king? How's that different? Come on in, Mark. Let's have a conversation. You want something to drink? Be like my friend Dave, right? He'd be the welcoming, right? If he was your friend. But we're more than just friends. We are children of the king. What's a child get to do? Daddy, Daddy! They're coming in the side door. They're jumping on the throne with Daddy, right? Sitting on his lap, having that relationship. They don't have to wait outside. They don't have to wait for the attendants. They're not intimidated by the soldiers. They're with the king, but they're with their daddy. What an awesome place to be. I mean, I remember having children and grandchildren sitting on my lap. They're all too big now. And it was fabulous. So I'd be sitting in my recliner in the morning, drinking my coffee, and they'd come down the stairs, and they'd come right over and jump in my lap, and they'd just snuggle right up. No words need to be spoken. Cool stuff. You all know what that's like. A child of the king doesn't have to spend hours waiting to meet the king or hoping he'd get to see him. Hebrews 4:16 says that we can approach the throne of grace with confidence. The throne of his grace we can approach with confidence. That's talking about prayer. We can talk to him anytime we want, right? We have a direct access to the creator of the universe. We have the God who is all-powerful, the God who is all-knowing, the God who is always present, the God who is always holy, the God who is always just, is waiting to have a relationship with us, wants to have a relationship with us. We can have a one-on-one with him anytime we want, anywhere we want, anytime, any place. Our King, our God, our Abba, our Daddy. He wants to have a relationship with just us, just me, just you. An intimate relationship or friendship with God is only possible because of the grace of God and because of the sacrifice of Jesus. In John 15, we read earlier, "You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know what his master's business is. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything I learned from my Father I've made known to you." And that applies to us as well. The word friend in this verse is not talking about a casual relationship. It's talking about a close, trusted relationship. The same word is used to describe the best man at a wedding, or also the king's inner circle of intimate friends, trusted friends. In the royal courts, the servants keep their distance from the king, but the inner circle are only the trusted friends. How many best friends does Jesus have? I would say a lot more than my friend Dave. But he calls us friend. And he wants that intimate relationship with us. Are you one of his best friends? I mean, when you look at the mirror, are you one of Jesus' best friends? Only you know that. And it's always based on your seeking him, because his hand is already out waiting for you to come to him. At Michigan Christian Youth Camp, we teach a lot of kids, as Rick alluded to it earlier. 450 kids this summer, and then throughout the season, many, many more kids. And many of them, the majority now, are not members of the church, and many not even know the name of Jesus. And their parents have sent them there, knowing that we're a Christian camp, knowing that we're going to talk about Jesus. And how cool is that? And we have an opportunity to teach the unchurched people of our world, and then the children of our own that go up there are growing in leaps and bounds. I know I mentioned this 2 years ago. We have the 450 kids that learn tremendous things in a very short period of time, and we have great teachers from this congregation that are going to be up there next, week after next. a week from today, doing that teaching. But we also strengthen our own. The people who are leading those children are from, generally speaking, 16 years old to, say, 22. So we have a whole generation of people who are just a few years older who are teaching these younger kids. And they are learning how to lead, and they're learning how to teach, and they're learning how to interact with those children, and they're learning personal responsibility. And if you're going to be a teacher of Jesus, you got to know something about Jesus. And these kids that are doing this leading are growing in leaps and bounds as well. And I can attest to my own grandchildren and the growth that they've had in those roles. This year's theme is Seek Ye First the Kingdom of God. Number one on my list. Number one on every Christian's list, to seek Him first. And it's a great lesson to learn. At every age, life with Christ, whatever age you are, life with Christ is better than being without Christ. If you would like to begin a new life with Christ, now is the time. The water is ready. If you want to submit to our Lord Jesus Christ, now is the time to do that. And if you want to restore a relationship with Him, now is the time as well. Please come now, so we stand and sing.